Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing an updated roundup of some of the best and worst pre-loved luxury selling platforms. The last time I did a video like this was in my initial pre-loved luxury guide from, I want to say like 2017, I think. So I have 7, I think, different selling platforms or different tiers of selling platforms I'm going to be discussing in today's video. Some of them I like, some of them I don't. But most of them I think I have used within the last year or so, and I'm gonna give you some of my experience and different information about them. So if you are interested in what is the best luxury resale platform, then stay tuned. So the first one is like a category of that I am just gonna knock out really quickly. Those are OfferUp and Letgo. These two I do not recommend. OfferUp and Letgo are, platforms where you actually have to meet up with the people, and I just really don't trust that. I don't think it's necessarily safe to interact with strangers from the internet, especially when you are exchanging value and money. Me personally, I'm just very skeeved out by the idea of meeting up with strangers and just exchanging your goods or your money, so I just would not recommend using these. Especially because there are so many others. The other thing, and this isn't necessarily for you as a buyer, but places like OfferUp, I see fakes all the time, so bear that in mind. Most of the people, okay, I won't say most, but there are a lot of fakes on those places like OfferUp, so I would be very wary of that. And it just generally, to me, just breeds, there's like an air of like illegitimacy, especially for the luxury goods on places like OfferUp. So I do not recommend those, and I will move on to the next one. The next one is kind of the best one, but it is unreliable, and I'm talking about the Louis Vuitton Addicted Facebook group. I have done a ton of business through that platform. It's also known as Reetsy. They did create their own website, which I will link down below in the description box. The Facebook group is, at this time when I'm filming, not active. It has been shut down, and it gets shut down like periodically from time to time. So it isn't the most reliable one, unfortunately. It is, in my opinion, one of the better and relatively safe ways. But there are rules to follow, and it is an invite-only group. I will leave it linked down below, but then once again, no promise that it will be available. These rules are put in place to protect everyone, and unfortunately, it seems as though a lot of people were not following them, which is why the group has been taken down. This group operates using PayPal invoices. Anyone can use PayPal to invoice people. You don't need to be registered as a business or anything like that. But when you send an invoice, you're able to attach photos to your invoice. You're able to attach all of the SKU information, and then you can add your shipping and tracking afterwards. Your customer or client does not need to necessarily have a PayPal account in order to use PayPal invoicing as a service. Once the invoice is sent to them, it goes directly to their email, and they can pay it with a credit card. So it's a very, very easy, very simple, and very convenient way to sell your luxury goods, provided you have access to shoppers. And therein lies the problem with the Louis Vuitton Facebook group. That one and the Chanel group, not currently active. What I will say though is that they do come back up from time to time, so just be sure to watch it. And as a seller, if you do want to offer payment plans, it is customary to accept a non-refundable deposit of usually a percentage or an amount that is, predetermined. And that deposit amount is okay to be sent by friends and family, and then for the seller to invoice the buyer for the remaining balance. Non-refundable deposits are okay through friends and family, but otherwise, I really do recommend invoicing. And PayPal charges a 2.9% transaction fee in order to use the service. So in my eyes, that's worth it. It's probably the way that you're going to keep the most money, but just do bear in mind, it is not as easy to find the people, and because you're not using a platform. Now, the next one I'm going to talk about is Tradesy. Tradesy is the one that I use the most, and unfortunately, it has downgraded on my list to not being my favorite one. I am currently exploring other options because, in my eyes, they used to be a lot better than they are currently for sellers. I think for buyers that they're great, but I'm going to get into all this in a second. So to start off with, as of I would think about last year, Tradesy's commission is 20% on any item sold, and then there's also a 2.9% transfer fee if you do wish to take your money off of Tradesy and disperse it into your bank account or PayPal or have a check issued. If you keep your funds on Tradesy's website to use as store credit, then you're not charged this fee. The full amount, less than 20%, stays in your account, and you can use that towards whatever purchases you want to make. But most of you are using these platforms to sell your money and Most of you are using these platforms to sell your items and receive the money back as cash. It almost ends up coming out to about a 25%, 25% after it's all said and done. Let me start with the good things about them. What's good about them is that shipping is covered. When you list your items for sale, you can opt in to have a $10.50 shipping charge added onto your price. The buyers do view your items with a price including the shipping fee, and that's just the price that you set plus $10.50 as a shipping fee. Let's start with the good things about Tradesy. Tradesy is humongous. Tradesy is a humongous platform. I've done a ton of business with them over the years, and I would say that they have great SEO rankings. So meaning that when someone types in, let's say, here I just happen to have it sitting next to me, Gucci Dionysus medium shoulder bag. When you go to Google Shopping, you'll likely see under Google Shopping Tradesy ranking very high in their search. As far as which platform is going to garner the most eyeballs, I would say Tradesy is great for that, and that has to be and that cannot be understated as one of like the most important things when it comes to selling platforms. Now that has been said, I'm gonna get into some of the reasons why Tradesy is not the best. Number one, it takes a really long time to get the money for your items. Usually, in my experience, it takes about a month from the date of the original order for the money for that item to actually end up in your account. Now, they do USPS priority shipping, so the item reaches the buyer in about 2 to 3 days, which is great. But usually it takes about a week after that for just for them to make sure that anything hasn't gone wrong with the item. Release the funds into your Tradesy account for you to disperse into your whatever method of payment that you prefer. Now, once you get to there, for some reason, after you initiate the bank transfer or whatever method you're using, it takes what they call 7 to 10 business days, but in reality, it's really more like two, sometimes almost 3 weeks between the date of you dispersing the money to yourself and it actually hitting your bank account. For me, like honestly, in 2019, I don't know why this is the case. I don't know why it's always so difficult and so slow to receive your money from Tradesy. Other platforms don't have this problem, and it's just really concerning to me that Tradesy is the only one that does. Also considering that they have raised their fees, I think two or three times over the last couple of years, and they're one of the only ones that charges the extra fee for dispersing the money. A lot of the other platforms don't charge a fee to disperse money to you, and the money is in your account much quicker. So that is something that is definitely a bone I have to pick with Tradesy. The next issue I have is that Tradesy accepts returns for any reason on the items. I am under the belief that when you shop with private sellers, I do think that it should kind of go without saying that whatever you're purchasing should be final sale. There definitely is room for some level of disagreement when it comes to shopping with an established business, but I do think that when you're purchasing an item from a person who is not, technically a reseller, who doesn't run a business, then your item should be final sale. That's my belief. Maybe you guys disagree. Let me know how you feel in the comments down below. Should items be returnable no matter what? Let me know your thoughts. Anyways, Tradesy used to accept returns on the seller's behalf, and the way that worked was that the buyer would return the item to Tradesy. Tradesy would disperse the money to the seller, and Tradesy would then use their own platform to sell the items themselves. My theory is that over time, they probably ended up with a warehouse full of things that had not sold, and I think that they are trying to let go of that policy. while at the same time allowing for returns for any reason. What that means for you as a seller is that the item can come back to you after it has been purchased, even though you as a private seller may not want to have a return policy for an item that you sold to, you know, a stranger through another platform. Tradesy is no longer selling the items off themselves. Personally, I believe that then they should perhaps consider not having a return policy, or returns only if the item is misdescribed, which is sort of the standard of all of the resale marketplaces. Yes, but what does happen is that the item does get returned to you, and now it's been all around the world and back, and you still have your item. And the other thing that kind of makes me itch about this is that the buyers can return the items for store credit, but you're still left holding your item that you already sold. Again, just my opinion that this is kind of not cool. Like, if you're not accepting returns anymore, then maybe just cut out having a return policy, period, because I think that generally people understand when you're shopping with private sellers that it kind of goes without saying that all items are final sale, purchase at your own risk. But I do want to caution you all in saying that make sure you are describing your items properly. I'm going to have another video coming up in a couple of weeks about just general selling tips, do's and don'ts. So comment down below if that's something you'd like to see, and maybe I can push that up. And the last thing that I don't particularly love about Tradesy, and this is just a little gripe that's a lot smaller than those other two things, and that is that they don't have an option for buyers to make offers on merchandise. What they're relying on is if someone wants to purchase the item, they have to message you and ask you, ask you to lower the price, and then you lower the price. You either include the shipping fee or you add the shipping fee on top of that, and you have to let them know that in advance. And then a lot of the time you lower it for them and they disappear. Personally, what I like to do is let them know whether or not I will accept their offer, and to let me know when they're ready to purchase, and I can lower the item for them. That's sort of what I do. And generally speaking, 8 times to 9 times out of 10, potential buyers who message you inquiring about items, they don't materialize. Like, I've actually gone through the actual stats on my, personal Tradesy account, and most of the time the people who inquire about an item, and even you go back and forth discussing pricing and everything like that, and how soon can you ship, etc. Once you do lower the price, they just disappear, and they're nowhere to be found afterwards. A lot of the time what happens is the item does sell, and it sells to someone completely else that didn't ask you any questions at all. So of course that is something you have to deal with as a seller, and that's not something really to gripe or complain about, but it is a reality that we all have to deal with. But all of that could be alleviated if Tradesy would just make a make an offer feature, just a button that made a binding offer that I could either accept, counter, or decline. I mean, every other platform has that. I don't know why they are the only ones that don't. Pros and cons: great platform, wide reach. However, they take a lot of commission. It takes a really long time to get paid, and you may not even see the money at all because the person may return it. And that, to me, is just always like a level of stress that I just don't need to have. So those are my thoughts on Tradesy. Let's move on to the next one. Next is Bestir Collective. I've sold a couple of items on there, and I went into details a couple of years ago in another video on like actual numbers of the amounts that I sold the items for, how long it took me to receive my money and everything, and I'll leave that link down in the description box below. Bestir Collective is one of the bigger platforms that is international. So Bestir, because of this and all of this international shipping and duties, they had exorbitantly high fees in my opinion. They have since, as of a couple months ago, lowered their fees, and it isn't really simple. The fees are a percentage, and it's based on a schedule. So if you sell anything from a certain dollar value to a certain other dollar value, then it's one percentage, and if it's like less than that, it's a different percent. Less than that, different percentage. Again, I'll link you directly to the page down below where that explains it. It's too much for me to try to explain here. I like when things are easy. I mean, who doesn't? The website is in French, and I think that since it is international, there is like a translate feature for some of the comments, but I don't know how accurate that is, so that is something that you definitely have to deal with as well. So you may get someone asking a question in French or Italian. Their commission percentages range anywhere from 25 to 35%, and for me, again, that is pretty high. I'm very realistic about these things. These platforms exist to make money, and I understand that as a middleman, I should be expecting to pay some sort of commission to match me, a seller, with, you know, a potential pool of buyers. I get that. I just think as a concept, 35% is a lot to be asking, especially if I have to do all the work. And now my last point I want to make about Bestir is that they inspect the item, they expect your listing before it goes live on their website, and what they do is they, you know, will recommend a selling price for you, and that sort of rubs me a little bit the wrong way. The main purpose of inspecting the listings beforehand, I think, should be for things like authenticity and to make sure that the photos are unique and have not been stolen from any potential other platform or anything like that. I think all of that is great. It's a great guardrail against counterfeiters. But as far as, you know, price, I think price recommendations can be fine. When you list your items, it sort of like has you like negotiate the prices with them beforehand. And again, I don't think that should be for them to say, you know what I mean? Now, yes, it is a pain in the neck for me when people have unrealistic price expectations, but you know, I think that the market should be the one to decide how unrealistic a price expectation is. You know, if the item sits on your website forever and ever and ever, that's an indication that there isn't enough demand to support that price point, or there just isn't enough demand for the item, period. And yeah, I think that should be decided by consumers, not by the company itself. So that sort of made me bristle a little bit, and I don't think that Bestir is somewhere that I would, you know, Bestir would not be like among my top picks of places that I would sell my things because of that. I didn't love that. So the next selling platform I want to talk about is Poshmark. I think when I actually look at, you know, all the pros and cons of every platform on my list here, I think that Poshmark for me is my winner. That used to not be the case. So Poshmark, to start with, Poshmark charges a 20% commission on all transactions. Unlike other websites, there's no transfer fee. It's just a flat 20% that you can either keep in your account to use on Poshmark for a purchase as a credit, or that amount gets dispersed into your bank account. What's changed about Poshmark in the last couple of years is that they sort of have branched out into other categories, and they do a much better job at separating those categories. So now Poshmark does do every tier of fashion and retail, like every tier of fashion brand, anywhere from Target and The Gap and Old Navy to Hermes. I think that is fantastic, but now they have sort of like, you know, segregated the different types of brands into like different areas of their platform. So there's now a luxury area, there's men's, there's children, I think there's like makeup and beauty, home, potentially, women's, kids, plus size. So they've done a great job of categorizing and niching down into what different people are selling. So you know what, speaking of, I just made a sale on Poshmark right as I was talking about it, so thanks Posh. By the way, I will leave my Poshmark account is linked down below. I just have like a couple of clothing pieces and things that I haven't worn in a while listed down there. Nothing luxury for the time being, but do check that out. I wear a size 9 shoe and just generally extra small 02 in clothing. I probably will be also adding to it in the next couple of weeks. So check that out. But anyways, your money, once your item, so yeah, you ship the item from home just like any of the others. You print out the shipping label. It uses USPS priority as well. So your buyers receive your item in about 2 to 3 business days. It's very fast, and then the buyer has 3 days to contest anything about the item before the funds are available to you. Once you disperse them, it takes, I think, maybe about a day or 2 before it hits your account, which is much faster than other people mentioned earlier in this video. I really, really highly recommend it. And Now let's get to some of the cons. It is definitely a plus that Poshmark has a make an offer feature. How do I say this? Buyers on Poshmark notoriously will lowball with their offers. It's like a thing there, and I don't know why that is. I don't know why it is. People will lowball you with offers. And if any of you who also shop on Poshmark are watching this, don't do that. That's not cool. It's not. Like, you know, if someone has something listed for like $100, and even if they're like smoking something and they're crazy to expect $100 for that thing, don't send them an offer for 15 bucks. Just leave them alone. Just don't lowball offer. I really can't stress that enough. Like, you don't look like a serious buyer when you do that. And I think that to me is kind of the only con. I think that there's something about the way that just the general like etiquette of the two platforms, Tradesy and Poshmark, is different. Whereas like when someone comments on your item, first, it has been my experience that they are much more serious buyers, I guess. Again, I have no data to support this at all, but it's just something I have experienced. Whereas on Tradesy, people just message you and then just, you know, completely ghost you. And the last one is eBay. I don't have a ton to add here about eBay just because I haven't used it as a seller in a really long time. I have shopped on it within the last couple of years for anything for you know, a variety of different things like vintage bags, hair products, etc. So I do use eBay as a buyer, but I haven't sold anything on it in quite a while, so I don't have a ton to add. I will say that I do like that they have added one feature, and they have added a feature as a part of the luxury market. They have partnered with Real Authentication, where you can now get a Real Authentication opinion within eBay's platform. So I will leave a direct link below to that. It's really easy. I think it costs maybe 10 or 15 bucks, and Real Authentication is one of my very favorite authentication services out there, and I just couldn't recommend them enough. It's super easy and very, very affordable, and now that you can do it within eBay's website, I just think is fantastic. So as a buyer, you don't have to you can always recommend that. Sorry, as a seller, you can always recommend that to anyone inquiring about the authenticity of your bags, and it's on them. And it's on them to spend the money, not necessarily for you. That's all I really have to add about eBay for the time being. If I do decide to sell anything through there, I will let you know how that goes. But that may be a while, and yeah. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and it was useful. It gave you some insights into some of the resale platforms. Now, one thing I do want to end with and say is that if this seems like a lot of work to you, I would definitely also reach out to some of your local consignment shops. You guys know, and I work in the resale industry, and if you don't want to go through all of these hassles and hoops, then you know what? Maybe just send your item off to someone else, and they'll take care of all that for you. And yes, you will pay a higher fee, but you just will be completely absent from all the stress and all the headache and all the process of chasing people down to pay for your merchandise or making sure the funds have been distributed, etc., etc. So that is just, you know, my last thing that I'm going to leave you with. If you do decide you want to sell your items yourself, these are the platforms I recommend. And by the way, the last thing on Tradesy, by the way, I do still use it, but they no longer have the top spot, in my opinion. They used to have it, and now unfortunately they don't because of the issues that I described early in the video. I think I will be moving to Poshmark for the time being. We'll see. But other than that, I hope this information in this video was helpful. If you have any questions at all, please leave them below in the comment section. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!